There is an idea in studying Torah, the Torah study group. Those of you who join us every week know of this idea that we read the entire Torah, and when we finish, we go back again, and we are constantly turning it, turn it over and turn it over, because everything is in it. And we say that it's strange sometimes to read the same Torah portion over again, but we say that the Torah portion is the same, but we're different. And we pull something different from our life experience over the past year when we read these stories, when we read these words. No matter how familiar, there is always something else to pull out. Except this week. I've read this Torah portion for many, many years. And I've given much the same sermon, more or less, many, many times, reading this Torah portion. And it's hard to read this Torah portion and not pull the same idea out of it, and especially reading it this year. Cantor told me it was a little bit too obvious, and probably everyone who's speaking this Shabbat is reading the same Torah portion and pulling from these words the same reality and the same pain. This is the story of Isaac and Rebekah. And they had longed for children. And they prayed. They prayed for children. Each of them prayed. The rabbis say they prayed separately, each praying, because my beloved is such a wonderful person. For their sake, please grant me a child. And both of them said the same thing, which is kind of nice advice for couples, just in general. And there they were. Miraculously, Rebekah was pregnant with twins. And the Torah says, V'hitrotzetsu habanim b'kirba. The children pressed, struggled inside of her. These two not yet fully formed human beings struggled inside of her. And she called out, if this is so, why do I exist? Lama ze anochi. The struggle is too great for me. And she went, the Torah says, to inquire of God. And God said to her, Shnei goyim bitocha. There are two peoples struggling in your womb. Two nations shall branch off from each other, and one shall prevail over the other, and the elder shall serve the younger. Two nations struggling together, Jacob and Esau, as we will come to know. And as our tradition teaches us, Jacob, the progenitor of the Jewish people who will carry the light of the Jewish people forward, and Esau, who ultimately will be the progenitor of the Arab people, the people in that land. And the two of them, before even being fully formed, struggled together. And that struggle, as we know, continues to this day. It's hard to see that struggle. It's hard to step away from the struggle. Sometimes we're too close, and we can only see what happened in the today, or maybe a few weeks ago. And sometimes our vision is too far. Sometimes we say this has been going on for thousands of years, and it'll go on for thousands of years, and there's nothing we can do about it. And both ways get us nowhere. Looking too closely, we see only our own pain. We see our own struggle and not the struggle of the other. Looking too far away is to declare hopelessness. But those who know me, and it's true, it's my birthday, know that I don't believe in hopelessness. I don't believe in impossible situations. I don't believe that darkness is the only option. Yesterday, a number of us gathered in our favorite room, Zoom. We put out a call for anybody who just wanted to sit and talk and express the feelings of this moment. And it was a pretty profound response. Some of you were with us in that conversation. And it was an emotional conversation. There was so much pain. The pain that was expressed, it was on the 40th day since October 7th. And so many are expressing the pain of what these 40 days have been. So many are expressing the abandonment that we feel from friends who have either not been in touch, not been able to acknowledge the pain, the vulnerability that the Jewish people are experiencing in this moment, the echoes of the Cossacks, the echoes of the Nazis, Yimach Shemo, may their name be wiped out, in that horrific, horrific day of October 7th. And to have that pain unacknowledged by friends makes us feel very lonely. And to feel that people with whom we've had common cause for many, many years, through many strikes, through many adventures, through many issues that had to be addressed in our nation, people we marched side by side with, who are saying things now that are so incredibly hurtful, perhaps without knowing how much it hurts us. I heard on that call from many, lonely and lost and feeling alone. And coming together, even if it was on Zoom, was a little bit of a respite. It's a little bit of a moment to know that we are not alone. And we talked about the fact that we can hold compassion for the other at the same time as we feel the pain for ourselves and for our family and for our people. That being in pain doesn't negate someone else's pain. And there is no value in saying mine is greater than yours. We talked about the fact that this is a complex situation. This struggle may not have been going on since the womb, but it has been going on for a long time. And the struggle is between two people who have a powerful story to tell, each to tell a narrative that is their own and that is contradictory. Two narratives about the same place, the same time, the same experiences of not so very long ago, but seen through radically different lenses and through radically different lived experiences. And the complexity, as we talked about yesterday, and we even talked about a little bit just before services, is that both of those realities can be true at the same time, even though they are contradictory. And to take our lens so far away and to ignore the struggle of the other is to lose our humanity. The Jewish people deserve to live in their ancestral homeland. It is our indigenous homeland, the place that we came from, and we returned miraculously. An amazing experience for an indigenous people who were expelled, who lived in diaspora for 2,000 years, and who returned to their ancestral homeland. It's an incredibly inspiring story. And it is our story. And there is a people who've lived in that land for a very long time as well, and who see that as their homeland and are indigenous to that homeland as well. And the struggle between these two peoples, the struggle is of those two narratives, both indigenous, both having a claim to the land, both who have been harmed greatly by outside colonialists and by each other. There is pain enough to go around. And the struggle is not eternal. There is a pathway. It's not going to happen tomorrow. Today and tomorrow, there is an evil force in Hamas. A force that cares not at all about the death of innocents, be they Israelis or be they Palestinian. A force that has the ability to protect its civilians and chooses directly not to. A force that kidnaps innocents and holds them without any regard or without any outside observance against all the laws of war. An evil force that has oppressed the Palestinian people in Gaza and in the West Bank, and is a direct threat to Israel and to Israelis. There is an important task that must be done in this moment. And there are innocents aplenty. Too many innocents have died in these past 42 days. One is too many. And Israel has a responsibility. Israel has a responsibility to do its utmost to protect civilians. Israel has a responsibility to do its best to allow food and fuel and water and other necessities of life and medicines to come in to help those civilians. Israel's responsibility to allow civilians who are fleeing to have safe passage to flee. That is also a truth. It's a complicated time. As Israel has the right and the responsibility, the duty to destroy this evil force of Hamas, to rescue the captives, and to create the conditions under which Gaza can have self-rule. Israel also has its duty to protect the civilians. And Israelis have the right to live in peace, and not in fear of another October 7th, or the rocket attacks that have never stopped. There is a complicated road ahead. How we get there is not clear, but the struggle will not go on forever. Because the pathway, ultimately, the end point is clear. 2 states for 2 people, living in peace side by side. 2 indigenous peoples at home in their own homeland. No one will have it all. And the extremists, the Palestinian extremists and the Jewish extremists who believe that they have a right to everything, are going to have to learn to live with less than they want. And they're holding everyone hostage by their absolutism. And unfortunately, the government of Israel was made up these past year of those extremists. And unfortunately, the Palestinians in Gaza have been led for 12 years now by radical extremists, and long before that, extremists who told them an entire generation has been brought up to believe that they will have everything in time, that their suffering will end with having everything. The 2 nations that struggled in the womb must find a way to live together in peace, must find a way to respect the other, even when their story contradicts each other's story. Even when their lived experience is so vastly different. Even when we've gone through so much pain, so much suffering, so much death. In the end, there must be peace. May we live to see it. May we one day turn to the story of Toldot and say, that was an interesting story. Remember when? May we live to see that day in peace. Amen.